It's the Hero Show. Welcome to the Hero Show, everybody, where every week we seek inspiration from great men and great women looking to become the heroes and heroines of our own lives. And you are here with your hosts. I am Andrew Bernstein. You are Robert Begley. How you doing today, Robert?
Oh, Andy, I am doing amazing. Ready to talk about the paranormal and what about evidence for or against it. Well, today's hero, he knows a thing or two about that topic.
Yeah, he sure did. We're talking, of course, about Randall Zwinge, better known to the world as James the Amazing Randi.
Yes.
And of course, Randi was a stellar magician. Yes. And he recognized that so many of these guys who claimed to have paranormal or psychic abilities were charlatans. They were using the standard tricks of magic to fool their audience, and he proceeded to expose a whole bunch of them. So yeah, he's a hero of rationality, and exposing charlatans who claim paranormal abilities.
Mm-hmm. And mainly he did it, Andy, because people were gullible. Oftentimes they're gullible. If you lose a loved one and you don't have an answer and you're not ready to let go, you want answers. And there will always be people ready to give you answers for pay. And this really bothered Randi when he was particularly when he kind of finished his active career as a magician. But some themes that I want to talk about today, you're the philosopher on the show. How do we know things? How can we prove? Randi would say it's a magician's job to deceive you, but at least he does it on, you're being deceived. Mm-hmm. But and he says it's only for entertainment purposes. But just this idea of knowledge and certainty and possibility, that's one theme. Second one would be, how confident do you have to be if you walk around with a check? First, it was a check for $10,000. Then eventually it was worth $1 million. That if you could take some kind of paranormal experience and act on it, and Randi could not expose how it was done using deception or magician's tricks. You really need to be sure of yourself if you're going to put $1 million on the line for that. And then what you just mentioned, what makes somebody so sure that they can do that? And then the flip side is the mindset of a person who is going to scam people, knowing they're in the depths of their lives. I couldn't sleep at night, Andy, knowing that's what I'm doing for a living. And
what about faith healers who Randi exposed?
Yes,
I mean, these people, if they think they're cured now and they eschew any medical intervention, you're playing with people's lives.
And that's what bothered Randi. He saw that time and time again. Yeah, he saw that time and time again. So I'll say this. I mean, I was going to save it for the end, Andy, but there aren't too many humanitarians out there who actually live up to the word. But I think James Randi, let's unpack, let's prove it. Okay. He's all about proof. So let's do that. Let's start a little bit of a biography of him.
Yeah. Born Toronto, right? Was it 1928 to 2020? He just died a few years ago at age 92. A few years ago,
yeah. I remember the day he died. I met him earlier in life. I was always a big fan of his since the 1980s when I first bought Flim Flam, and I saw how he was exposing these charlatans.
You may want to tell the audience what Flim Flam is all about.
Flim Flam is, if I'm in New York right now, if I was in Orlando, I'd actually hold up the book. But it's just he shows how these different kinds of claims are that they're not valid. So he'll prove them, and it's a matter of magic. These people who are doing them, they're just using sleight of hand. They're using deception And so he just gives one after another
Right.
examples.
He exposes them, these charlatans in flim flam.
Yes.
And we should point out he himself was an outstanding magician for many years.
Yes.
And magic is the art of deception, and it's for entertainment value. People know,
He made it clear.
Yeah, this isn't real. I'm not literally when he was on stage with Alice Cooper, the rock he had a guillotine and chop off was Alice Cooper's head.
Alice Cooper's 1974 tour, and I knew that. I remember watching that thing on TV, and I was like, how does he do that? I didn't even know it was James Randi.
Yeah, that was amazing. I mean,
yeah.
Alice Cooper's still alive, isn't he? I mean,
he is.
Oh, he was a big rock star circa 1970.
Yes.
And he was very popular. And I'm 18. I can still, hear the lyrics.
Oh yeah, I'm 18. One of my absolute.
Yeah, I get confused every day.
Yeah.
But 18, I don't know what to say. But anyway, Alice Cooper was a big rock star. He did all that heavy makeup and snakes. He appeared with snakes and stuff. He was a showman. So we had Randy on stage. Randy built a guillotine to chop off his head. Now, now the audience should know this is all done for fun. This isn't real. We're not really chopping off the guy's head. This is the art of deception. These are magic tricks. Randy's a master of it. You bring a magician into a kid's birthday party, and hopefully the kids know this is just, this is all for fun. This isn't real. But faith healers, they're playing with people's lives. They're claiming they have the ability, they can actually cure somebody of cancer or some hideous disease, and they're getting paid for this, for this flim flam, for this act of charlatanism, and you're playing with people's lives. And so the big difference between magic for fun and for entertainment on the one hand versus using magic tricks to deceive people seriously, to that you really have, to convince people you really have abilities that you don't. You're lying to them, you're a fraud, and you're making money by fraudulent. You're not making money, you're getting money by fraudulent means. And Randy went out to disprove and debunk all of these claims. He did a great job in case after case after case, didn't he?
He totally did, Andy. But if we go back to his youth, he was probably like 5 or 6 years old, and he saw a state, he went to see a show, and he saw a magician doing his act, and he just could not believe what this person had. He had a woman, he levitated a woman, and Randy was just fascinated with it, and basically committed to, that's what I want to do in life. And when he was 17, he still, through his childhood, went to high school, but became a high school dropout to go and join a circus and become a magician. And he excelled in that. Harry Houdini, the most famous, escape artist and magician, probably at least in American history, was his idol, and he emulated him in so many ways. And we talk about some of his, stunts and tricks. He's in the Guinness Book of Record for being, encased in ice for like 55 minutes. And there's a picture of him. It's like, really? I've done the Coney Island plunge on New Year's Day, where you run into the water in Coney Island, and it's
with the
like
the polar bear club, right?
Oh, I'm sorry, the polar bear run, but you're in and out in like 15 seconds, not 55 minutes.
And the water's not ice anyway. If it was ice, it wouldn't be water.
That's true. That's true. So doing those kinds of things, being chained, and getting out of these, different contraptions. By the way, let's just say there's a film that we recommend. It's called An Honest Liar, and it's a biography documentary of Randy. And you see a lot of these things that he does. So through the years, he's famous as a magician. He's part of popular culture. And as you said, with Alice Cooper, he was even on Happy Days, hanging from outside the window.
Yeah. He was on the Johnny Carson show all the time, right? And for the younger audience who don't know Johnny Carson, he was late night TV. Yes. Right in the 60s and late 60s and 70s. For many years, he was the king of late night TV. He was on Johnny Carson a lot. But Robert, the thing that really spooked me was he escaped from a straitjacket suspended upside down over Niagara Falls. that just boggled my mind.
So repeat that, Andy, in case you missed it. What did he do?
he escaped from a straitjacket when he was suspended. He was hanging upside down over Niagara Falls. I don't care how much they pay me. I'm not, I'm not, no.
And what did you do this weekend?
Yeah, right.
I went to a baseball game.
Yeah, I went to Niagara Falls and I hung upside down in a straitjacket. What?
So it comes to like, I think the mid 1970s, and he sees this phenomenon named Uri Geller burst on the scene.
Yeah.
And Uri Geller becomes famous for bending spoons. And Andy, for the first time on the Hero Show, I'm actually going to attempt to bend the spoon.
By the way, before you do that, Robin, I just want to say, BFD, big freaking deal. If you got psychic powers, that's all you could do with them is bend spoons.
That's all you got?
Yeah, really. I mean, come on, you really should be able to get psychic powers. You do
we're
more
gonna
than
try.
that.
And guess what? I'm not a magician. I can't bend the freaking spoon. I failed.
And you're not a psychic either.
No, I'm not a psychic either. So this guy Uri Geller is getting all this exposure, and he's going to be on Johnny Carson's show, as you mentioned. This is, if you make it on Johnny Carson, if you succeed on his show, it opens the entire
millions and millions and millions of people are watching Johnny Carson.
So Randy can't make it. They call him the day before and they're like, can you come out to Los Angeles? He's like, no, but I can tell you what to do. And he guides the staff on how Geller's going to try to do the paranormal activity. And he exposes it. And Geller, you see him and you see the whole thing. You can find the footage. And he's like, I'm not feeling it,
Yeah, I was watching it. I was watching it in the movie the other. What was the name of the Randy movie again? I just saw it the other night.
An Honest Liar.
An Honest Liar, right? Yeah.
Magicians lie all the time, but they do it honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. And even me, and I know this guy Uri Geller's a fraud, and it's just that he's being exposed as a fraud. Even I felt bad for him, as the poor guy's watched, millions of people are watching him, and he's being exposed in real time as a fraud, And
so after that, he's ready to give up shop. He's like, I can't believe it. No, Merv Griffin, another mega television star, has a program, and then he offers Uri Geller to be on it, and then within like 2 or 3 weeks, he's the phenomenon. Everyone has forgotten the Johnny Carson show where he was exposed. So Andy, this is part of.
But there were people. Some people are so gullible, Robin. There were people who thought the failure on the Johnny Carson show actually augmented his argument, because if he was using magic tricks, he'd be able to do it. But if he's using psychic powers, there may be some days where the psychic powers are more pronounced and others where they're wane. So they actually use that to augment, and bolster Geller's claims.
You use the main word, Andy. I want to take a minute and talk about is gullibility. So why is it that millions of people see one television program and they see how embarrassed he is? Another TV show comes in from the other side and says, here, do this, because they have this massive audience of what kind of people? Gullible people.
Yeah, credulous. Yeah. There are people who want to be deceived. I mean, you can understand. If I have cancer or somebody I love has some horrible disease and the doctors can't help me, you want to believe that the faith healer can do it. But the reality is the faith healer can't. And
he never does it. The faith healer never does it for free. Okay, there's always money there.
Yeah, unlike Jesus touched, cured diseases and didn't take. Now, if you could actually cure somebody's diseases, you deserve a lot of money. But they can't. It's charlatanism, and the times maybe understandable that the people want it to be so and they want to believe, but. You ignore reality or deny reality at your own peril, because now you think you're cured, and what you're gonna suspend any medical intervention for, at that point, and while the disease is still eating you up. Not good.
Not good. And so we come to another one with Geller. His claim was that for these paranormal activities, there was no religion involved. Then we go to Peter Popoff, who was like this minister, and he would cure people, right? You'd see the stage, thousands of people, and they're sitting in wheelchairs, and all of a sudden they stand up on his program because he touches them. And basically what he would do, this is not as much in the movie. I remember this from the original footage, where he would have these people who come in a wheelchair, fill out a questionnaire, and then they'd feed that info to Peter Popoff. And then he would say, oh, you're from here, and your wife is this
his
and that.
His wife was behind the scenes on a radio
Popoff's
transmitter,
wife, yes.
right? And he had the receiver in his ear. She's feeding him the information.
She's feeding him the information,
and he's claiming to the audience, "I got it from God."
Yeah. Is there
well, maybe in a way, maybe been honest. His wife, many marriages, his wife is like God,
it's amazing though. So this guy, again, was exposed, career's done. 10 years later, he's back making millions, raking in millions of donations from people. And that's
he's doing those religious infomercials. He's making millions.
Yeah. But people are taking their actual prescription drugs and they're throwing them up on the stage. They're getting rid of them because Peter Popoff is telling them, get rid of that. That's the devil stuff. And this bothered Randi. This is why, that became his life's work. So we founded, 2 organizations, one on skepticism, and then eventually the James Randi Educational Foundation, which still is still around today. But he's all about knowledge, backed up by reason, evidence, proof, logic, and he's against taking gullible people and
you're exploiting them, right? You're exploiting
them. Thank you, Andy. That was the word. Totally exploiting them.
Right. And some people look, we need, in order to convince anybody, we need rational human beings that is open to evidence. Then not people who aren't just committed on emotional grounds to some belief, but they're open to evidence. And some people are, and some people aren't. And there were people who, when Randi exposed Uri Geller and others, showed the tricks they used to bend spoons or whatever, they were true believers who said, "No, Randi, you have psychic powers. You're using psychic powers." They were so committed to the belief in in parapsychology that they believed Randi wasn't using magic tricks. He was actually a psychic. They're so committed to this, and they some people are simply not open to the evidence. In fact, in the movie in Honest Liar, there's even footage of people telling him, "You have to believe in it first. Then you'll see how parapsychology is actually real." Yeah, exactly right. You have to believe first. You haven't come to it with the belief. You're not going with by evidence. You already have an emotional commitment to the reality of this stuff. And then if you believe first, you're emotionally committed to it, then no evidence is going to convince you to the contrary.
No, and that's the difference here now between reason and faith. If we go again philosophically, reason says you go by the evidence because of evidence, and guess what? That's the thing that distinguishes us from the other animals out in nature, is that we have that capacity to use that reason, which is what Randi is advocating. But Andy, if we go to so there are different groups that we're seeing who are gullible here. What about Stanford University? Okay, they have this study and this, again, they want to fund Uri Geller, who is basically running this hoax. And James Randi finds out, and he gets these 2 young students, teenagers, I think, to go in for these series of tests where they say they're psychics. They say they have these powers, and they're advanced magicians.
Right.
Under Randi's guidance. And they reached the point, it's really poignant, Andy, in the film, because they know they're deceiving the audience, the staff at Stanford University or wherever that was. They know
it was at Stanford.
Yeah, it's still at Stanford.
Major university, one of the leading universities in the world.
But the point here is they have this personal conflict. Like, I know I'm deceiving this guy, and he really, really believes what I'm doing, and I can't do this anymore. So I give those young guys in the film, I actually give them credit for honesty, because they know they're doing something and it's affecting the audience, the ones who are funding, the people at the university, who they like as people. but they just can't continue. Whereas the scam artists, the Uri Gellers and the Peter Popoffs, they don't care about the people they're defrauding.
No, they care about their con men. You know,
Yeah.
what they, and con man, one of the principles of being a con man is you never give up the con. Even when you're exposed, you say, no, 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 I really am, so and so.
Yep.
And these guys, Geller, Popoff, they never admit to being charlatans. They never give up the con. And Randy's students at Stanford, they showed the tricks that magicians use, to actually fool people into believing that they have psychic powers. So they, they were doing good, and they knew they were doing good, but still, like you said, they're deceiving people who sincerely believe in this. And it's painful. It was painful. Eventually they had to tell the truth and give it up. But they made their point. For anybody who's open to the evidence, they made their point. These are magic tricks. This is not psychic powers. You remember Randy said, was it about the spoon bending? He said, these are magic tricks they used to be able to get off the back of a cereal box. You remember? And and Geller or somebody said, nah, there's nothing about this on cereal boxes. And Randy actually produced an old cereal box where you send in the money to some magician, and he'll sell you the tricks of how to bend spoons. Right? I think it was the spoon bending trick, wasn't it? Where he said, you got it off the back of a cereal. But years ago, this is such a cheap trick. You could get it off the back of a cereal box.
Mm-hmm.
And he was right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, one of the good things that we see at the end of the movie, a guy like Uri Geller, he's selling jewelry on QVC, on the QVC channel. Like, this is what he's from the heights of Stanford University, wanted to give him money to selling cheap jewelry to gullible, people at 4 a.m. on a cable channel, So if we talk about other influences that he had, Andy, the most famous, if we look at magicians of today, certainly entertainers who know what they're doing, who even had a television program. We'll talk about Penn and Teller, and their most famous television program. I used to wait every week to watch it on HBO. It's called Bullshit, because they would expose the bullshit of all of these phantom stories that gullible people fall for. And they pay tribute to Randy. There's one picture of Penn Jillette, who's like this massive guy, and Randy is, if you don't know what he looks like a Gandalf.
He's like a gnome.
Gimli. He looks like Gimli the dwarf in Lord of the Rings, because he's short, kind of hunchback, big beard and bushy eyebrows, and it's like he's right out of a Tolkien novel.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he is. Yeah. Penn and Teller also, like Randy, they've done a lot of good.
Yes, in exposing the hoaxes, because no matter where we are in every culture, in every era, there are people who will spot weaknesses and try to profit, and try to take people for their money, specifically at their most vulnerable point. And again, I can't say this enough. Whatever James Randi did, that bothered him.
Yeah,
he wanted
absolutely.
to.
Look, con artists come in many different forms, and these guys are con artists, and it should be illegal what they're doing. Getting money by defrauding I can't even call them customers, by defrauding people. Because the people would not give them the money if they knew, that these guys was just using magic tricks. The people think that they have real psychic powers. They're being gulled, and it's a con. It's a con. It's getting money dishonestly.
And Andy, I used to think about that. So in New York City, you'd always see these tarot card people sitting on the sidewalk. They're usually like 50 pounds overweight. And I'd always think to myself, can't they psychically, use their powers to just get into better shape, or is that part of the get up? And I would wonder, like, out loud, Andy, and I could ask you this. Is it one of two things or a combination? Do they actually think they have these powers? Okay. Or do they know they're defrauding people and it just doesn't bother them because they continue doing it? Or is
Well,
it, do you think it's like some kind of combination of each?
that's an interesting question. Before I try to answer that, let me go back to Randy for a second.
Yeah.
And it shows in the movie. He's got a great sense of humor. You know,
Oh, yeah.
he's uh, he's really he's really funny. And regarding Popoff, who they noticed had a radio transmitter in his
Earpiece.
ear,
Yeah.
and he's receiving the messages from his wife backstage. Who's on the radio on a certain frequency. He's pointed out. He says, well, if he has these kind of powers, he can heal people from cancer. You think he'd be able to heal if he was hard of hearing, because he has this hearing aid. He'd be able to cure, being hard of hearing, right? So no, it's it's a scab. It's a radio receiver. Anyhow, you reminded me about 40 years ago. You remember the novelist Kay Nolte Smith,
Yes.
who unfortunately died very young of cancer.
Elegy for a Soprano, I think, was one of her books.
The one I'm thinking of, she died, unfortunately, I think in her 40s of cancer, very young, in 1980 something. But one of her books was Mind Spell,
Yes.
which I liked, a lot. And it was about a similar theme. It was about exposing people spiritualists, people who claim to contact the dead. And again, they're taking money from people you mentioned before. They just lost a loved one. They're in deep bereavement. They want to believe in being able to contact them in the spiritual world. And the spiritualist is the medium is taking money for it. And I think the book is really good on exactly in your question. That I'm no specialist in this, but my guess is what Kay Nolte Smith shows us there is real. That some of the people, some of the mediums are so deranged that they actually believe, that they have these kind of powers to contact the dead. But some of them are just straight con artists, and it's all bunkum. It's all charlatanism. Now, how it's difficult to believe that they could believe it when they're using all these physical means, to create the spirit. They're making it out of plastic or whatever it is. But there are people who are mentally ill, and might be able to convince themselves that this is somehow some real contact with the spirit world, and so. But I thought I'm just guessing. My guess is that they're both kinds, and there may be a continuum. It may be people who know they're engaged in conscious trickery, and yet they can rationalize it to themselves that we're doing good, we're making people feel good. Maybe it does actually heal. Maybe it actually does heal somebody, or maybe the element is psychosomatic, and and then when they believe that they're healed, then they are healed. It's probably, I'm guessing, there's probably a continuum of belief, combination of conscious fraud with actual belief that this is helpful to people.
Yeah, because the more people you dupe, the greater your invincibility, you feel, the greater you feel like, wow, I was able to get that. And then you just raise the stakes and tend to become better at it until you meet a James Randi. And
there's very few James Randis in the world.
And then the game is up
for these con artists.
Right. But the game is only up for a couple of weeks because Randi leaves town and then you go to the next town. And it's like Shelbyville now. It didn't work in Springfield with the Simpsons. You go to Shelbyville and it'll work over there because they're a new gullible group, and so.
Right. I know what you remind me of, going back to Kay Nolte Smith's great novel, Mind Spell. After they debunked these these mediums, these spiritualists in the story, the novel ends with another claim of contacting the spirit world, or another claim of psychic ability. I don't remember the exact details. It's been a while since I read it, and I remember a lot of rational readers were stunned by that. So what she's saying, is like, there really is this, because it remains undebunked at the end of the story. This new psychic claim. And she's saying that this stuff is real. And I pointed out, no, she's saying that this stuff will never end. That there will always be these kinds of con artists, and there will always be people who are gullible enough or credulous enough to be gulled by them. And it's a never-ending battle between rationality and presenting evidence and demanding evidence, as against, you know, this genre, of con artists who's claiming psychic abilities or contact with the dead, you know, and things like that. It goes on. It never ends. I think that was the point.
That's the point, Andy. And
go to Shelbyville, like you said, just go to Shelbyville, go on to the next town, and go new dupes.
Yeah, new dupes. But Andy, credit to you. I think you've mentioned this on a prior Hero show, or maybe just in conversation with me. But what would you tell your students whenever they made a claim? It was almost like a chorus, right? That they would all have say this thing.
I'm sorry, I don't know what context.
In your classroom, like one of the first sessions for the semester, you tell
in
them
the logic class.
Yes.
Oh yeah. I will always ask for evidence.
Don't make a claim unless you're able to back it with evidence.
Evidence. Yeah, I mean, in my logic class, in the first week, I go in and tell them what logic is, and after that, every day for the rest of the semester, I walk in the room and I sing out as I'm walking in the room. What's the purpose? I have a logical catechism. What's the purpose of logic? And the kids got to sing back at me to show us how to provide evidence to support a conclusion. They got to. It's all about evidence.
That's it. People, so you don't have to wait for a logic class in Andy's classroom. I think this is one of the add-ons we have for you here at the Hero Show, is that you can ask this question to yourself every single day about everything that you believe. It's like, okay, where is the evidence for it? And because that is the way humans, again, this is what distinguishes us from the animals, and they don't have that power of reason. And Randi, just coming back to him, he's a master of reason and inquiry and all of these things that make us human, which is why I consider him a great humanitarian, a hero and a great humanitarian.
No, I agree. The amazing Randi was amazing.
Yes.
Without a doubt. And
so many ways. Yeah. Definitely check out the film An Honest Liar. It's on Amazon Prime, and really worth a watch there.
I agree. When that great American philosopher William Joel once said that only the good die young, but he's mistaken. Billy Joel, obviously talking about. He's mistaken in this case. Randi lived to be 92.
Full life, 92.
Yeah, did a lot of good in those 92 years. So I think we could salute, the amazing Randi. Thank you for your all your battles, and all your work in support of rationality as against mysticism, irrationalism, and every form of fraudulent activity, deceiving, gullible people. And your influence on Penn and Teller. There'll always be work for these kinds of investigators, because, like we've been saying, there's always going to be one con artist and two people who are gold, are credulous enough to be, fooled and taken in by the con artist. So there's always work for these kinds of rational investigators.
Yep, and we will celebrate them. Mm-hmm.
Yes, we will. So everybody, we'll be back next week on the Hero Show with more instances of great men and women who inspire us to be the heroes and heroines of our own lives. So let's all strive to lead a more heroic life, and we'll see you once again next week on the Hero Show.